Hello, welcome back. This is the lecture over order of operations. Now, I want to start with talking about PEMDAS, or Please Excuse My Dear Aunt Sally. Most people have heard of these, which are great acronyms for order of I'm going to say great. They're okay acronyms for order of operations. I have several issues after teaching for 25 years, or teaching for so many years, with these. One is, for both of these, they imply that multiplication comes before division, and that addition comes before subtraction. And I know that, and I hope that all of you know that they don't. Both multiplication and division, addition and subtraction, are supposed to be worked from left to right. Now, students learn these and they think that they're supposed to be done in the order that they occur. Now, let's go back over these real quick. The P stands for parentheses, the E stands for exponents, the M for multiplication, the D for division. Those are worked from left to right. The A is for addition, and the S is for subtraction. Now, when I was in high school and further in college or graduate school, I came up with what I call my pyramid. And what you do here is, this is kind of a takeoff of the food pyramid, where when you eat that food, you you pull it off the top of the pyramid. And so my pyramid, you start with grouping. And grouping is the same as the grouping symbols. And grouping symbols are parentheses, brackets, braces, absolute value bars. Working everything underneath a square root symbol is considered a grouping thing, but actually taking the square root is an exponent, because the square root is the 1/2 power. So here you take the square root, but here you simplify what's under the square root. So there's the grouping symbols, and then you do your exponents, and as you work these things, you peel off the pyramid. Then you have multiplication and division, and these you work from left to right, and you work them as you read. The same way that you read is the way you work the questions. And then you have addition and subtraction, and you work as you read from left to right. Now, the only thing about my pyramid that you have to do is multiplication has to be on top of addition, and division has to be on top of subtraction. But you can move division to be first, or multiplication to be first. You can move within the pyramid, you can move these across, okay? But this has to be the same way. So multiplication has to stay on top of the addition, and division has to stay on top of the subtraction. This has to stay the same, and this has to stay the same. But these can be moved from first to second. So if you want to rework these as a teacher, and you have division coming first in the problem, you can move division first, as long as you keep the subtraction on top of it. And you'll see why the subtraction has to be first. That comes first. And all of this is talked about within this paragraph. It tells you how to work all this. Now, absolute value. Let's talk about absolute value for a minute. Absolute value. From kindergarten to first grade or second grade, when we talk about absolute value, the way we define absolute value is that it makes a number positive. So when we talk about these, if we talk about the absolute value of -3, what we mean is, it just makes the number positive, so we call it 3. or we talk about the number 3 and we say the absolute value of that is 3. From 2nd grade to 5th grade, when we talk about absolute value, we're talking about the distance from 0. So when we talk about -3 and we talk about 3, we talk about this is 3 units. And this is 3 units. Okay, so that's what we're talking about here, is that absolute value means absolute value of -3 equals absolute value of 3 because they're both 3 units. Okay, that they're both the same because they're same distance, so they're the same because they're 3 units. From 5th grade to forever, when we talk in mathematics, what we're talking about is a piecewise defined function. We're talking about a function that is defined in different pieces. We're talking about a function where if the number that we're talking about, so the absolute value of -3, that is less than 0, so then it falls under this case, so that's negative a -3, which makes it 3. Or if we talk about the absolute value of 3, then that falls under this case, and so it's just the number that's inside the parenthesis, inside the absolute value bar, so it's 3. In this case, we notice that the sign is acting on the x value. All right? And so these are the 3 stages of absolute value. We, in this class, are going to be dealing with this 3rd stage. So when I ask you for a definition of absolute value, what I am looking for is this graduate absolute value. So if you put down that you say it's the distance from 0, although that is technically correct, that is not the definition that we are defining it to be, because you are now in the 5th grade to graduate level class. Okay? So yes, that is technically correct. It is no longer the definition that we are using. Okay? So, let's go on to see how to use order of operations, just so that we're all on the same page and we're using them correctly. Now, I realize that everybody in this class can do multiple steps at one time, but in this course, we are doing many things. One of the things that we are doing is we're preparing you to teach middle school mathematics. So, middle school constitutes, your certification constitutes 5th through, I think it's 8th or 9th grade math. So, that means that you are going to be certified where you're going to be introducing this material. So, when you introduce this material, one of the things you need to know is if it does not have equals, if no equals to begin, then do not add. So that is one rule of thumb. So does this statement, this expression, this is an expression, okay? This is an expression. This is not an equation, all right? This is an expression. So does this expression have an equal sign? The answer to that is no. Do I put one in? The answer to that is no. All right, next thing. What do my order of operations tell me to do first? It tells me to work within the grouping symbols. Now, I like to say grouping symbols, not parentheses, because sometimes my grouping symbols could be a brace or a bracket or an absolute value symbol or a square root, whereas if I always say parentheses, then students think that that I cannot simplify anything but a parentheses. I have one son that is very literal, and so he does not think that I can do anything but what's in a parentheses. Now, here's my third rule of thumb, is that you always recopy the entire question. So 12 divided by 3 times 2 plus parentheses 6 minus 4 is 2 plus 2. All right, 12 divided by 3 times 2 plus 4. All right, now what do? I've done my parentheses, so now I'm going to do my multiplication or division. Well, my order of operations say that I work from left to right, so that means that I do my division first. 12 divided by 3 is 4 times 2 plus 4. 4 times 2 is 8 plus 4, so my answer is 8 plus 4 is 12. Okay? Next. Okay, now I'm going to go down here. I have a multiplication sign right in the middle. So I have 17. Negative 3 times 10 is minus 30 plus 2. Or you can think about this as minus, and 3 times 10 is 30. 17 minus 30 is going to be, now I in my head do not think this way, so I'm going to go right over here and do 30 minus 17 is 3, and that's a 2. 2 minus 1 is that. So this is minus 13 plus 2, and that gives me minus 11. Just because that's not the way I'm thinking off the top of my head right now. Minus 12 minus, and 3 times 6 is 18, so that is minus 18, minus 12 plus 18, and 18 and 12 is 6. Here I'm going to start with division. I like to underline where I start so that I know where I'm starting. 14 plus 6 times 4, so that's 12 plus 24, so that is 36. Ooh, mistake. Anybody find it? I did that and that. I miscopied. So that's 14. And that's 14. And this should be 38. All right? That's a good way to double check yourself. And FYI, you should know that to the left of my screen where I'm talking, I have the answers written out. And I caught it because I could see where I had worked out the answer. So now I'm going to scroll up and work the last 3 questions. So I'm starting here. 13 minus 2 is 11 plus 14 divided by 2. 11 plus 7 gives me 18. I'm going to start in the parentheses. So this gives me 66 minus 6 divided by 30. So this is 60 divided by 30. And I almost oops again by not writing the 0, gives me 2. 6 minus 9 is negative 3 times 4 divided by 6 times 2 minus 4. Absolute value of 3 is 3. Absolute value, when you actually take the absolute value, that is like an exponent. So now that I'm actually taking the absolute values, I don't put the bars, I just take 3 times 4 divided by 6 times 2 minus 4. So now I'm going to do this multiplication that gives me 12 divided by 6 times 2 minus 4. 12 divided by 6 is 2 times 2 minus 4. 2 times 2 is 4 minus 4 gives me 0. That concludes the lecture. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please email me.